Say something profound.
We're here, and we're about to make history.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Good But Not Soft podcast. I'm here today with Ronald and myself, Benjamin. Josh was unable to join us because he had other obligations, apparently.
out of state.
Yeah. But, so it's the two of us today, so it might be a little, I don't know. 3 people's easier to keep a flow of conversation going, so I apologize in advance if it kind of lags.
Well, we're going to keep on swimming. Just keep swimming. Can we say that? You don't mess with the tech giants and the media giants and the movie giants. Talking about movies.
I like movies.
Same. Just make sure people don't see this. No. One of the movies I think that is pretty profound is, and I'm trying to figure it out because I don't got nothing. So I was gonna say Lord of the Rings, but
so Lord of the Rings made me think Tolkien or C.S. Lewis.
I don't know much about their beliefs. Well, I know a lot about C.S. Lewis.
I mean, yeah. And Tolkien and him kind of had their back and forth because of their beliefs. Because, C.S. Lewis wasn't a Christian, and then he became a Christian, but then he didn't believe in the same stuff Tolkien did, and they got into a little bit of a back and forth over that. But
yeah, isn't there some story out there about them encouraging each other to write their novels?
They did.
I forget who encouraged who first.
So they were in a book club together, and kind of more or less, and they would it was them and several other writers, and C.S. Lewis was very encouraging to Tolkien about writing his fiction, and C.S. Lewis was writing his works, but not necessarily, he hadn't gotten into the fiction side as much yet, like all the Narnia stuff and everything. And then Tolkien, once C.S. Lewis did write it, was very critical of Lewis's work and didn't like it.
Interesting. I love the Narnia series. They're just a beautiful piece of art that I don't know what rivals it.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. It's so deep and in so many ways. And one of the things about both the Lord of the Rings and the Chronicles of Narnia is that kids can enjoy it and adults can appreciate it.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is kids just read about a lion and, oh, the lion saved people and Father Christmas is here. Oh, yay. They can get gifts and things. But adults who also understand the Christian virtues and values woven throughout Narnia's and Lord of the Rings work can say, I know who that lion is or who that lion represents. And, okay, the witch's magic is weakening. Oh, awesome. And so it's, I have a new daughter since we last spoke, I think.
Nope.
No. Okay. Well, I got a daughter and she's 3 months today, depending on how you count it. My wife, Joanna, is real interesting. She goes back in a good way. She goes back.
So how you said that just doesn't sound good.
She goes back with, I hope she does this.
So you need to be more positive when you say she's a really interesting person.
She's really interesting,
not like,
and I love
she's real
her.
interesting. Like, it makes it sound bad.
Yeah. Tone of voice. I should love these things. And she goes back between counting how old Ava is. She will do weeks one day and months another day, and And so right now I think she's 12 weeks, but she was born on the 13th, which today's not the 13th. So she would have been 3 months on the 13th, which is next week. But because it's 12 weeks, we're going to count 3 months today. So it gets real interesting as a husband.
It only works in February. The month of February is the only one that's 4 weeks long. All the others are slightly over.
Yeah. So I'm a husband. Those things are above me.
It's a little above your pay grade.
Yeah. That wisdom there is too lofty for me. But I can't wait to read the Chronicles of Narnia to her and see as she hears the stories and learns about the things and wants to be Lucy one day, you know?
Made me think of the video that went around the little girl. They're like, "What'd you learn about in school?" And she's like, "About Martin Luther Jr. and how he died for our sins." Like,
yes. Yeah,
a little bit lost in translation there, but
yeah.
You know?
But yeah, just Winnie the Pooh is another good series where kids can enjoy and adults appreciate because it's really profound.
Yeah.
It's just deep stuff. I remember talking to someone who talked about being sad and depressed and whatnot, and I sent them a Winnie the Pooh quote, which I won't remember accurately now, but it was something along the lines of, if you want to make friends, you got to go out. Like something that simple. And I sent it to them, and they're like, "Oh." I was like, "Yeah, like you don't just get to say you're lonely and not go out. Like you have to make friends and do the
Some
things."
people enjoy being lonely, Ron.
Let me say this: there's a difference between lonely and alone.
I mean, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen it?
And
one's a TV series, I'm pretty sure.
And what I mean by that is, you could be alone at home, right? Me time. I have me time. Then there's alone, right? You probably heard the saying, "Have you ever been in a room full of people and you're alone?" I think loneliness is like a little bit more.
There's a little bit more to it.
But
so we're talking about movies. What is your favorite movie series?
Can I share like 3 maybe?
3 maybe? There's like 3 good ones. In general, that's about it.
So dystopian wise, The Hunger Games and The Maze Runner are ones that really battle for first place in my life in that way. And the reason is just because the Hunger Games is just classic classic dystopian where the government is using their powers in the wrong way and someone rises up. The funny thing about the Hunger Games is that Katniss, like, it was kind of thrown into this role. Like, she's a bad actor. She doesn't know how to do the things. And Peeta, right, he's the one who is way better at acting and is in on all the things that are happening. Yet Katniss is the one who's the mockingbird, because the things. And so I really like the Hunger Games, but the Maze Runner, it is twisted because the government has created a virus and they put it into society.
Laughing because it's ironic.
And very
Wonder
ironic.
why.
and that's a rabbit trail, and I see the rabbit, and I'm not gonna chase it. And they're trying to cure it. It's gotten out of hand, and they've gotten to the point where they're deciding that it's best to preserve just a group of kids, like teens, so that humanity can live on, because they know like the world's gonna end because of this virus they created. Yeah. And so it gets to the end, and I'm conflicted. And the reason I say I'm conflicted is because there's a saying that they have in a book, which is "wicked is good," that they programmed into their kids. And I look at that saying, and it's obvious wicked is bad because they created a virus that put them in a situation where they had to fix it, right? But they ended up saving those teens and in turn saving humanity. And so it's that age-old question of, okay, if someone does evil and then does good,
does it override what they've previously?
Do two evils make a good? I'm so bad tonight.
Three lefts make a right.
Yeah. So maybe you just cut all that out, but
just cut it all out. There'll probably be a lot of that in this episode.
My favorite 3-part series, answering the question he just asked, is the Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games. I'm a Star Wars nerd, so Star Wars is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
There's a lot there.
Well, I guess you didn't say 3-part.
No, I just said series.
Yeah.
So like you have like the MCU, and within the MCU you have like the MCU.
Ooh, Captain America:
but then you
Civil
have,
War.
like, and then I like that one. And then you have like like obviously the
and that's
X-Men
a whole universe. Mm-hmm.
universe and the Fantastic Four and all that within Marvel, and then you've got Star Wars, which is pretty much, as long as you stay with the Disney canon, is all tied together. Yeah. Except for the Visions is the only thing I think that Disney does that's not canon. I don't know what else. There's a bunch of stuff. Obviously, there's like Star Trek. Not a huge fan.
Yeah.
Dune has a huge following.
The first Dune was very slow, and I think it was a 3-hour movie.
So I've not watched Dune, but they say that Dune makes 0 sense. But Dune 1 and 2 make 0 sense unless you've read the books. They say they are movies made for the nerds who read the books.
Interesting.
Like, there's a lot of stuff like Lord of the Rings. You don't want to read the books and watch the movies. Or, I mean, you can, but you just have to imagine it as two separate things. Lord of the Rings and Hobbit are so different.
Mm-hmm. Especially The Hobbit.
And
Especially The Hobbit. I mean, they made, what, 3 movies?
3 movies out of one book. Whereas the other one was, 3 movies, but it's 3 books. So it's like, okay.
Yeah, they drug that out.
Yeah. And so... Yeah, but they say it's not a good one unless you actually know all the backstories and all the stuff that happened previously and whatnot. And yeah.
Made for the nerds.
That's pretty much it. So I've not seen it and I've not read the books. So trying to think what other good series there are.
Kung Fu Panda.
I still haven't watched the new one.
Yeah, Kung Fu Panda 4.
It just came out, right?
Yeah, it's out in theaters. I don't know if it's still running, but...
Yeah, I haven't watched it. I wanted to. And then the Civil War movie's coming out next week.
I think you told me about that.
I'm looking forward to that one. I want to go watch that.
Not the one President Obama made, right?
No. Nope, not that movie. It's about like if Civil War broke out in America today, but it's, from what I understand, it's done in a way that it's not necessarily tied to current like politics or anything. They try to keep it very free of that. So you have things like, in the thing, like the alliance of California and Texas. I mean, just politically speaking, California and Texas would not be on the same side of that
Anything.
fight if it was, if you're just
Yeah.
going off of politics and Civil War. So things like that. But it looks really interesting. Like there's a line that people love to make fun of because it's like goofy how they do it up and stuff. Like the guy's kind of goofy, whatever. But like, they're just whatever, and they're like, no, stop this dude, and like, a uniform-ish thing. Is like holding a gun and like going to shoot somebody. They're like, stop. They're like, we're all Americans here, and he's like, but what kind of American are you? And it's like this whole thing. It's like we're all Americans, but like, which side of this are you on?
As you were talking about that, this thought came to mind. The Civil War back then, or I guess our only Civil War, was pretty easy in the sense of, okay, north, south, so let's march, meet, fight, whatever. What do you think a Civil War would look like now? Because there's many talks of it, right?
So
bloodbath and quotes out of context and this and that, da. Like, what would that look like now when there are so many
rural
people?
America versus, it'd be rural America versus the cities, urban.
Okay, so
So
each state would have its own.
how it would end up
almost fight,
working
you
out
think?
is pretty much it would be rural. There would be no definitive lines because previously it was family members fighting each other,
Yeah.
but like they weren't fighting each other because they believed in different stuff. It was just it was where they were at. It wasn't all necessarily beliefs. Like, was it Lee who said he would have like fought with the Union if it wasn't for the fact that he didn't want to fight against his state. And so he was a big supporter of his state over the government, even though he didn't necessarily agree with what they were, standing for. But he wanted to protect his state, his family. So he fought. So it would become rural versus urban conflict. But the thing is, rural, you can hold up well in a rural area.
Yeah.
And you can defend yourself from outward attacks. It's easy. You can prep. You can be isolated. You can be self-sufficient.
They're coming to you.
But you can't win a war. So how that war would have to go is you'd have, and obviously within urban areas and rural areas, you'd have people on both sides too. Yeah. But as a general rule, if we're talking based off of, political views, I mean, that's typically what civil wars are over. More of your rural and cities are going to be on opposite sides of that spectrum. So what would have to happen to win a civil war would either the urban areas would have to come into the rural areas and take over, or vice versa. The urban would have to be taken over by the rural areas. Because that's how those lines are going to get drawn up. And as I said, there'll be people on both sides in rural and urban areas. But most large cities are more liberal and most rural areas are conservative. And that's just kind of, as a general rule, that's how that cookie crumbles.
Why do you think that is? Like, just people just living in a city, more population there, more minds, and then people who are out here, there in the country, lean more towards being conservative. And then again, how do you even define those words? I have trouble with that sometimes when I hear in Christian circles, well, we're conservative, and then we hear about somebody else who's more conservative than us, and then there's a person more conservative than them, and he just keeps going. It's like,
well, so that's,
wow, okay.
That's where you get the
and
whole.
Then same on the liberal side, right?
That's where you get the whole political ideology, compass. And
which I need
you
to
have
watch.
left and you have right, you have north, south, and on a political compass, we talk about in America being liberals or Democrat versus Republican, liberal versus conservative, are both right, are both on the right side of the compass. One's just further right on the compass than the other.
Interesting.
And the right side is strong capitalism. Any money I make is mine. The left side is everybody's it's hardcore Marxism, not even communism, Marxism.
So Marxism is harder than.
So communism is how they get to Marxism. So
Okay.
Marxism is, it depends on what you're whatever. Some say Marxism is, there's one person who's kind of up top over everything, but no real government. It's just kind of this one kind of dictator person, but not necessarily. And some say there's no government, no structure, nothing. It's just we live in this perfect,
like real Marxism.
Yeah, we live in this perfect dystopian world. Everything's shared evenly. Whereas communism, there is a government, but and that controls the people and stuff, and says we need to distribute this stuff like this. We need to do this. And the idea of it is communism leads to Marxism. Now, we've never seen that happen on a large scale because it's impossible. You can't get a country's worth of, enough people to live in a country to agree on anything. So how are you going to get to where you can have the ability to say, all right, we don't need a government anymore to oversee this?
Yeah, I would say I'm trying to find an adjective for this.
And then north and south on the compass is government control, more government control versus less government control. So.
Okay, so.
And then left and right is capitalism versus like communism. Like everybody's equal, and all the money goes in the this pot, and everybody gets an equal amount. Versus I made this money, this is mine, and whatnot. So
I would say with the Marxism, I'll say it like this: when you set goals, there are things at times where it would be amazing if you could do this. It's like, man, if I could get this done today, that'd be amazing. Then there are the realistic goals, like, okay, I can pick up that sock, and I can get that done. And I think with Marxism, the goal of, man, if everyone shared this and had and no one had more than what they needed or whatever it is, I think this would be ideal.
Yeah.
But this is
it's not feasible. It doesn't work that way.
And the reason for that is because, and this is why I think capitalism is one of the best frameworks for a society to operate under with currently, is because it allows people to flourish. What I mean by that is people could build a business that, one, provides for their family, two, helps the community, and three, uses their talent and dreams, ideas, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
As opposed to Marxism, like, there's no incentive. There's no, hey, I want to go do this for my community and benefit from that in a way that would make them better off. It's like,
well, so
it's all equal. So the person who sits on the couch and does nothing gets as much as the person who's out there digging trenches.
So funny thing, our country, well, not our country technically, before our country, we existed as a country, the Pilgrims came over and they did that. They like one of the first things they built was the community house, where everybody got to meet and stuff. That was like the first building, like real building that went up. Any crops, anything you made went into one big pool. Everybody's stuff went together, and then it got divided evenly by what you needed. And eventually they had to go turn away from that because they had that issue of this person is working, a ton, and this person is not doing anything. Yeah. Or, they might even be doing a little bit, but they're doing, Like it's like they're working enough that it's like, oh, look at me, I'm doing something, you know, move
Yeah.
2 shovels full of dirt,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, oh, I worked, but they're not actually making enough, you know, crops and
Yeah.
just stuff, log, all their stuff, consumables, whatnot, everything they need to survive, to be able to even support their family, let alone the village. And so that was how they originally did it. Whenever they came over.
I think with the capitalism, because I look at it now, and there should be, I would say there should be more checks and balances. And it's so tricky because the government's involved, right? And they're supposed, and one of these days we need to talk about the brilliance of our founding fathers to create or to structure our government how they did, with all the checks and balances that are not being obeyed and followed now. Like, how do you boast about just overriding, you know, what the Supreme Court has said? Or you could,
Yeah.
like,
Well, it's like
anyways.
journalism.
Another rabbit.
Journalism actually requires, like, one of the things, if you go to like school to be a journalist, like one of the things that you say, like, that you'll do as a journalist is like you won't like write stories whenever to contribute to chaos and to fear. If you look at the news, that's all it is on both sides, is just more stuff to get people worked up. Because I mean, you scare enough
Big
people
time.
and you'll get people moving.
Yeah, big time.
One way or the other. And
Big
so that's
time.
just one of those things of like, they say, oh, you know, we're not going to do this. And then, well, so much for that.
Frustrating. But yeah, just need checks and balances, because the thing with capitalism is you could create an amazing system business like Amazon, right? They are great at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But you can get, or Disney, right? Great when they stayed true to the founder's vision. Another rabbit. But they get, or Facebook, right? The vision of connecting people, right? It's a great vision, great idea. But then they get big, and then the government gets involved, and it's like, oh, there should be checks and balances to allow businesses to really be in favor of the people.
So like there's laws and stuff against like monopolies.
Yeah.
So Apple's actually, the government is looking into Apple because the vast majority of phones being sold in the US are iPhones. And
Interesting.
because most people buy iPhones and like the majority of people do that, they are able to keep their prices significantly higher than what the government says it should be. Because if you look at the numbers and stuff, I can't remember, it's like $100 or it's sub $100 to build an iPhone. And they're selling for, you know, as much as like $1,500.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the government is actually investigating Apple right now on whether or not they are within the bounds of monopoly and whatnot. And
I thought monopolies were more stopping a company from going into different sectors and dominating. So, for instance, Apple or like Amazon, right? That's a great example. They are e-commerce, but they purchase Whole Foods, so now they're in groceries.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw news on they're teaming up with Hyundai to see, like, you could buy a car off of Amazon.
Yep.
They joined the
You can buy these little tiny homes off of Amazon now.
Oh yeah, like and streaming. They started Rings of Power, right? So now they're producing movies. So
they had stuff before that too, but
okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I thought monopolies were more, hey, you're getting into all these sectors. Like, what if Amazon's like, hey, we got our own phone business, right? Or entering the phone sphere, and not hey, you created an amazing product and everybody wants to buy it.
The thing is with Amazon, they have a streaming service. In my opinion, I like Prime better than most other streaming services, but you have Disney, you have, I mean, Hulu and Disney are
which everything's going back to how cable
but
was.
You have all these different, you know, streaming services that are competitive or at least offer their own stuff. So, you know, you have your Prime originals, you have your Disney originals, you have your Netflix, all that. So there's still competition. Same with like they have cars, like they're selling cars through Hyundai, but there's other car companies, there's competition and stuff. So they haven't driven out all the other companies and have bought out. So like if they bought all the car companies, now they have a monopoly on car companies.
Okay.
Um,
Well, Google rivals them. Google phone and Samsung
and so that's the thing
those
with the
are the
iPhone
big three that I know. In Apple.
is I think like 90% of phones being bought in America are iPhones. So it's the vast majority, but their thing is because the majority of people are buying them, they're able to drive the prices up more and more. When in reality, it should be pulled down. And they're doing it more than it should be. So, because obviously, there's markup. You got to pay, high up officials in the company. You got to get this much, and then the workers need this much, and then all the stuff. But you got the cost of manufacturing. You got got to pay for the lights in this building, and blah blah blah. But so there has to be some markup over the true price of what it costs to produce it. But that's why the government's looking into it, because they say that it shouldn't be as high as it is.
Well, about that, should the government even be saying things like that? What are your thoughts on that? Like that, isn't that big government stuff?
Yeah, but we live in a country full of that.
Yeah.
So, and I think
I wouldn't mind buying cheaper iPhones.
Yeah.
Like I have an iPhone 13 Pro that I paid full price on, and I think I'm considering upgrading soon, just because I like iPhones. Believe it or not, Ben, my first iPhone was an iPhone 6S. So that's when they introduced 3D touch for the first time. Big, crazy thing for me as a high schooler. And then I bought every iPhone up until I think it was maybe it was the X, the anniversary phone that I bought every year up until that. And then finally I was like, I'm not gonna buy every iPhone every year. Like I'm gonna hold my iPhones. And so I got to the anniversary phone and then upgraded from the anniversary phone to the 13 Pro. So that was a big jump. And you appreciate the bonus features more because you waited 3 or 4 years, as opposed to 12 months.
Well, so that's the thing where you get into
do this now.
Like innovation. iPhone really hasn't had any sort of innovation since, realistically, any major innovation changes since probably the 10. We'll say 11. Probably 11.
Yeah.
Nothing's really changed on the iPhone.
The big
since
thing
the
about
11.
them is the camera.
But like I said, it's really not changed much.
Yeah.
Like you get slight, so my screen is a 14, doesn't have as dense of a it doesn't have as much of a pixel density as a 15. But that's just slight increase. It's not like all new stuff. Like whenever they tried doing the OLED screens. Which that didn't work out the first time, whenever they first introduced that. But like that was going to be actually something that changed it, where it was like phone's going to the phone runs differently, your battery life's going to change altogether. It was a different screen, whereas these screens have this is the same screen, more or less as the 15. The 15 just has better density, whatever. It's maybe a little crisper, but it's not
titanium.
any true upgrade as far as like innovative additions to the phone. They added the little button up here on the side instead of the silent switch. Yeah. But they had a button, years ago down here.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's not anything too innovative.
Let me ask this: why do you think that is? Because this is what I'm thinking. I'm looking at our society now, and I mean, breakthrough innovation and ideas and all businesses, just like people just with brilliant ideas several years ago. And now, at least from my observation, I think the most popular thing is creating videos. It's like TikTok, Reels, this and that. And then we get to the business world, and in some ways people, it seems like at least, companies just copy another company and then put their spin on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, so think of Apple, the iPod. That was
that was
huge
revolutionary.
thing, but it wasn't. It was literally a copy paste of another product that was already existed, but it bombed. Nobody bought it. They didn't have the marketing.
Wow. Yeah.
Apple has a cult-like following.
Yeah.
And it always has. Apple did one thing that was innovative, with putting a computer in everybody's, a laptop. That was the big whatever. Computers in everybody's homes, whatever, with the Mac. And this whole thing. There was going to be a computer in every household, whatnot. You didn't have to go to, like, the library to use the library computer.
Yeah. To use a Dell.
That was a big thing. That already existed. Another company just didn't do good at it. Apple came in, and they did good at marketing it, and it blew up. Huge cult-like following, because they had their mission statement, and people believe in this mission statement. We're going to do this, and we're going to whatever. And now, most people don't even know what the mission statement is, or care. Yeah. It's an apple. If it's got the apple on the back, then it's got to be good. Me, I have it because, like, this is pretty much, for the most part, what I've used, but I can send full-quality photos and videos to my friends easily.
Yeah, just through text.
Through text messages. But you know why you can't do that? You can't send it to green bubbles? Because Apple won't upgrade to the newest software, whereas Android has. And they're not compatible together. It is literally because Apple has regulated it to make it so that you have to buy an Apple to send a full-quality video to another Apple device. And so that's why the government's looking into it, is because of manipulative stuff like that and overcharging and stuff. But that's what Apple does. That's good business. That's capitalism.
Well, in their ecosystem, right? Like, I have an iPad, I have a Mac, Book Pro, and all of it. I mean, I could get a text from my phone and respond on my laptop and FaceTime. Like, they build an ecosystem to where you're just like, it's hard to be like, hey, I'm going to get a Google phone while my iPad and my Mac is Apple.
And so that's the thing with Apple. Think about your the MacBook Pro. It's really not the best computer out there. It's honestly pretty bad compared to a lot of computers for cheaper price tag.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Same with the iPhone. Really, the iPhone's not the best thing. There are better phones now, and especially for the price difference. But again, it's how they've manipulated the system stuff, but it's convenience. Convenience is what people care about.
Yeah, the simplicity and convenience.
And so, yeah, I don't have a button down here. It's simpler this way. I can swipe. I can do whatever. I don't have to do that. And I don't have, I can send a full quality video to somebody through text message if they have an iPhone. It's not that the iPhone's better necessarily. It's that it's just more convenient. So
Elon Musk, he made this statement: you will get paid in direct proportion to the problem that you could solve. Yeah.
You get your compensation is equal to the level of problems you solve or something is the thing. So whether it's compensate, I think the word was compensation. And the reason he does that instead of pay is because compensation could mean payment. It could mean praise. It could mean, you have this level of clout versus that. It's this whole thing. So yeah, it's pretty accurate. But that's the thing, like, Apple really didn't do anything innovative. They just were better marketers.
I think one of the biggest thing for them that really did change and was revolutionary and innovative was the iPhone.
Well, and even then, there was very similar products already out there. The Motorola was working on their razors. The razor was a big thing. I mean, obviously,
I remember the razors.
You had this razor, but you can still get razors. They just look more like this. It's a smartphone touchscreen. It's just what they call theirs. It's the razor. You had different companies and stuff that did that. So
that goes to show you, marketing is everything.
I mean, that's Stanley Stanley's been around forever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
recently they've been trending, but it's because a genius marketer came along and was like, what if we market to this crowd, send it to these people, and add a handle to it? That's all they changed, was they put a handle on their cup. Instead of doing stainless steel colors and like gray and whatever, they did bright colors and sent it to some content creators and big names and celebrities and stuff. They just did far better marketing. And it was literally the same guy who made Crocs famous. He was the marketer for Crocs, and Crocs blew up. And like Crocs are quite popular,
Big time.
and so marketing is a big part of it.
Capitalism for the win. So I think I finally have what I was asking earlier about, does the end justify the means?
Of which part?
With the Maze Runner book, I was talking about how Wicked created a virus, and then they created the virus to bring the population of the world down, ironically, and then it got out of hand and wanted to fix it. Got a group of teens that they did experiments on. And the end of that was to save humanity. But they killed several of the teens through the trials and lied to them, actually. So several things like that. But they ended up saving humanity. And so that age-old question, does the end justify the means? If it's saving humanity.
Well, and like another series is, the MCU, Thanos. Snap, killed half the population.
Actually, that's perfect. Yeah.
The reason he did that was to save humanity. Because
Yeah.
if you watch Eternals, which I did not like that movie, but it gives you backstory. It explains what was going on. In the MCU, once a planet, the planets are like an egg for what do they call them?
Right?
Those large beings. I can't think what they're called now. I'm not
Is
big
it
on
not an
Marvel.
elemental?
Yeah,
Maybe that's something else.
I don't remember.
That is a Disney movie.
Yeah. But so like, it's like Galactus and stuff. These big beings, whatever. They like live inside of these, and once it gets to a certain population, enough life, they're able to consume that and burst out and hatch. And the reason, so he snapped, cut the population in half, but then they go and save the population because that killed off tons of people. But then a few years later, this being is coming out and goes to destroy the entire planet. So instead of half the population being dead, all the population is going to be dead.
Dying.
And then you end up having, the Eternals, whatever, saved them, whatever, by killing the being and this whole thing. But, what he did was terrible, killing half the population. But had it played out like it was supposed to, more people would have died than just half. So it's same thing, just a different series basically.
Yeah. Talking about movies, there are very few of them where the villain actually wins. One of them is The Dark Knight, where Joker, he ends up winning. His plan is to make, or it's that quote, you either live long enough to become the villain or you die early a hero.
You die a hero or live long enough to become the villain. Yeah.
Thank you. Die a hero. Exactly. And so at the end of the movie, you don't think about it, but he actually wins because Scarface was really evil, or he was a crooked politician, right? And Batman takes a fall for it to save Scarface's reputation, because he knows if the truth of all that he's done gets out, the city will crumble.
Yeah.
And so Joker wins because Batman becomes the evil person and or takes the bat. Thanos also, the Infinity War, the very first one, he wins. And it's what is going to happen? And we know Disney is not going to, they're not going to see Infinity War do $1 billion in the box office and not
not
bring
continue it. Yeah.
It's not gonna happen. And so it's that one of the things that fascinate me, because you could look at these villains, because there are some villains that they just like, they're just evil because they want to kill people, or it's just whatever. But then you get villains like Thanos that seem to have reason behind it. They want to take out half of the universe so the other half could live. They're so twisted in their evil that they're like, hey, I like to save the world in this evil way. This is the best route, as opposed to using the stones to double the resources.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Different, yeah. Well, and so, like, you can look at even current events going on right now. There's been the whole conflict in Israel, not the Gaza-Israel conflict, but over wanting to, this whole sacrifice thing. Because they want to bring about the end times. They believe if we do this sacrifice, it's going to start the end of the world. It's going to bring on the end times, to the point where they're ready to fight for it.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that justifiable? Can you actually, like, is that something you ever...
If that would...
If that even works out
possible,
that way.
Yeah. Like, hey, God, we know we're going to start the end times.
And so, like, it's this whole thing of, like, they're going to do something wrong to try to do something that they think is right. And it's this whole...
The obvious answer is no. The ends don't justify the means. But then you get into the weeds of things, and it's like, well, Rahab lied, and she's in the Hall of Fame, and someone's gonna take that and run with it. Probably edit that out. So yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, it's a very complicated
matter.
But yeah, it is a lot. But I think on that note, let us know what your opinions are in the comments. And
Yep.
we will see you in the next one.
I think it's your time to give us a good but not soft quote.
Good but not soft quote. Nope, so I'm on the spot. I can't think. You're killing me. Here, I'll get you a quote.
It's a Monday. They're driving in their car. They don't want to go to work, or maybe they do.
Give you a Henry Ford quote. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right.
Could be.